Hello, I'm exhausted and welcome back to My Hero Academia. If you saw my latest Attack on Titan reaction, which is the Season 2 finale, you will know I'm exhausted, but that's not gonna stop me from making a video. Even if it probably should. No, that's alright. Last time on My Hero Academia, we had Infinite 100%, where basically we learned Aries' quirk is Rewind. Took me a sec. Her quirk is Rewind, and it can actually be used in a number of different ways. For instance, splitting Overhaul from Nemoto, and as Overhaul wants to use it to rewind the course of the species within a person to a time before they had quirks. And we also learned that his original plan was to sell the quirk Rewind to villains and then sell to heroes a version that rewinds them again so that they can get their quirk back, which is pretty interesting. Then he basically turned into a giant Yu-Gi-Oh villain and was ready to face Deku. Deku realized that he can use Aries' continual rewind to fight at 100% power because basically she will just rewind as soon as he breaks himself, and he won't even feel the pain, which is pretty cool. And he does. He fights at 100% and completely dominates Overhaul. And maybe that's the end of the fight? It could be. I kind of hope there's a bit more, but that might actually be the end of the fight. And it seemed that the future has changed because originally the future that Night Eye saw was that Deku died and Chisaki escaped, but the future is different. And at the end, Night Eye gave a smile, which was always, what Mirio said, get Sir Night Eye to acknowledge you, make him smile. And it seems that Deku has finally done that. So yeah. You guys know how to get to the reaction. It's in the description and in the pinned comment. So let's go ahead and get started on this episode of My Hero Academia. Here we go. It's a sign of incredible storytelling when a character can be introduced about 12 episodes prior. In the case of this show, in the 4th season. And the emotion that it can get from the audience, at least on me, the fact that it can get that emotion for a character we have only known for a very short while, not even the length of the first season, basically. Oh, well, okay, I guess granted they introduced him earlier, but we didn't get to know him until, I guess, really honestly, episode 3. And the fact that they can get that kind of emotion is that is the mark of amazing storytelling, because I'm honestly tearing up for Night Eye, he's been an amazing character, yes. But this character that we have only known for such a short time, And you feel it. Even Deku has only known for a short time, really. So to have this sort of emotional response for it is quite frankly incredible. let's talk notes. Rewind. So we did have the incredible effects of the rewind playing out more, which last episode I was like, oh, I wonder where we're going with the fight. And then it was towards the end of that discussion last episode where I remembered, oh yeah, Chizuki kind of got his ass kicked. So I was like, maybe there won't be too much more of the fight. And sure enough, but it was just enough to rewind Overhaul to split him from the big guy. And then the rewind started taking its toll on Deku. Now, I would be interested to see what potentially, if anything, has changed in Deku because of this rewind, because he was starting to be torn apart, basically, you know? That rewind was starting to get to him, you know? But for the most part, like, they show all his arms are exactly the same. So she hasn't rewound any of his injuries, at least since his fight with Muscular. So presumably nothing really has changed, you know? Presumably he's still, you know, all of his injuries are exactly the same, and you know, his arms are exactly the same as they were. He still only has 2 or 3 times he can break them, and he's still at his strength, basically the same strength. His body is still accustomed to 8%. That was it. I was trying to think of that. His body is still accustomed to 8% of full cowling. So I don't think she's really had any sort of negative effects. I am glad that they did, because I didn't even think about that. It's like, oh, how do you know, it's like, oh, Chizuki is the only person who can turn off her quirk by, you know, reworking her, basically, tearing her apart and putting her back together. But I didn't even think about that. It's like, okay, well, what's another way you can disable her quirk? By disabling it. Having Eraserhead turn her quirk off. Which, now, because of that, you know, likely he also turned off Midoriya's quirk, but it's not like he was using it at that point. Though, maybe you could speculate, you know, because, you know, I know I'm saying you know a lot, but this is what I do. But because she was rewinding him, so it seemed drastically, you know? And he said, like, her power is getting so much stronger, and she can't control it. I almost wonder if One For All was fighting it, you know? And because here's the thing. This is One For All we're talking about. This power that is so ridiculous. It's more than... At this point, honestly, it is a bit more than just stockpiling strength and stuff like that. Like, there's something about One For All, I feel like, where it's a bit... It's still even more different from the average quirk, that I almost wonder, was One For All fighting the rewind, trying to keep Midoriya where he was? You know? Now, they didn't say anything about that, but I would also wonder if... Now, this doesn't fully make sense, but hear me out. Because, I guess because Eraserhead did say, "I'm sorry, Midoriya," before he did it. Now, I would imagine maybe that's because he was thinking, well, you know, presumably you would want Eri to use her quirk to save, you know, reverse a lot of injuries, Kirishima's, you know, Sun Eater, Lemillion, and especially Night Eye. But he had to disable that quirk or else Deku would have died there, basically. I guess it's more that, but that was something that just sort of popped into my head. It's like, okay, so, you know, Midoriya had no effects from being rewound for at least a good 30 seconds. He was being rewound, you know? So I would almost imagine that I would almost speculate, and there's nothing really to confirm this, and this is really just a minor theory, but I would honestly wager that it was One For All fighting her quirk, fighting the rewind, basically. You know? Because One For All, again, it's not just stockpile of power at this point, you know? Because there's also, you know, like in the sports festival, you know, when Midoriya sees this vision of all the previous users, and that's, you know, that's what activates his power. That's what activates One For All to knock him out of the brainwashing, you know? So, I would almost wonder if it was One For All fighting the rewind. Maybe. We don't know. I don't think it's something like that would really come up, but it's just sort of a thought I had, basically. Okay. We had the aftermath of everything that happened. I imagine that this is going to get into the news, you know? I imagine this is going to get into the news, especially just with how large scale this was, you know? Which we had that earlier with, you know, Red Riot's debut and then the debut of Uravity and Froppy. I would imagine this is going to be the debut of Deku, you know? So yeah, that was pretty crazy. Just that whole aftermath. I did love Hado putting respect on the name, you know? Hado putting some respect on the name. But yeah, so I did like that. And then we did have, you know, everyone going to a hospital, man. Everyone going to a hospital, and Nidai acknowledging, Deku, you twisted the future. Something I could never do. You know? And then I love, you know, they're taking Chisaki away, and it's just like, oh my gosh, look! And they pan, you know, they pan over, and on top of that car is Tomura Shigaraki. And that is one of those moments where you look and it's like, oh shit, it's Shigaraki. And that's when you stop and you realize, I just said, oh shit, about Tomura Shigaraki, you know? Shigaraki, who was... He didn't have too many moments within Season 3, you know? Like, he was big in Season 1. I feel like he was still pretty big in Season 2, at least in the latter half, especially with his conflict with Stain. Season 3, he stayed in the background, then he was a major part, but that was also with All For One, and then he sort of went back into the background for a bit. So, the fact that, you know, now he has this presence, you know? I feel like, honestly, he is the villain he's always wanted to be now, you know? So yeah, when they pan over and it's like, that's Tomura Shigaraki, it's like, oh shit, it's Shigaraki. Now we're in trouble. So yeah. So that was interesting that, at the very least, while they couldn't get Eri, they did take the bullets. And presumably they took both cases, so they have... they do have both cases, basically. So they have the cure and then the cure of the cure, I guess. So, dog just started barking. I don't know what that's about. Anyway, so yeah, the League of Villains has taken the bullets. And also, okay, so Compress just jacked one of Overhaul's arms, which is crazy. The amount of control he has is actually pretty crazy, you know? Like, I didn't even realize, like, he could just take it, you know? Which, I mean, we kind of had that a bit in the training camp where, you know, he takes part of Todoroki's ice. But still, it's like, you know, you'd almost figure, like, he breaks it off and then compresses it. It's like, no, he just takes it, you know? So, he took one of Overhaul's arms, presumably... Well, I don't know, maybe to keep the quirk? I don't know. At first, I was honestly thinking when Shigaraki was like, I'm going to take your quirk away. And he put it down. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Take his quirk away. I was like, are you? Did you? No. Right? No. Like, he's not. No. But then he just disintegrated his arm. It's like, oh, well, we got to cut this off. And then he cut it off, you know. Again, it's leaving Overhaul alive, but he can't use his quirk because he doesn't have his arms. Which is interesting that I didn't even think about that he does need his arms in order to... I guess that's just because, you know, last episode we had, you know, him just being a torso and then reforming, but it is his arms still out there that are reforming everything else back in, you know? So, yeah, without his arms in his, I guess, base form, he can't use his quirk anymore. So, Overhaul is out, just 100% out. So, yeah. But at first I was kind of thinking, it's like, I'll just take your quirk away. It's like, what? And then, you know, he puts his arm down. It's like, what's happening? And then he just disintegrates. Like, oh, okay. I thought they were going to pull, like, some twist, like, he could just take your quirk, like, all for one. I don't know. But no, he just disintegrated the arm because without his arms, Overhaul can't use, well, Overhaul. So, okay. Whew. Then we had the scene at the hospital. Again, Hato putting respect on Deku's name, which I like. And that was a good talk with Mr. Aizawa. So, Kirishima's a bit battered, but I'll get better. I imagine Recovery Girl is going to help with that. Yeah, and it's sort of the same thing for Sun Eater and Fat Gum and everything. It's like some broken bones, but nothing horrible, you know? And I did like that moment of Lock, his wife and kid come in, and they're all happy and stuff. Like, that was nice. Eri is in a fever. She has a fever from using, I assume, overuse of her quirk, you know? Like, that's probably the most extreme she's ever gone with her quirk, so she currently has a fever. And then, yeah, they had to disable it, and that was good of Aizawa to say, we can't rely on her quirk for this. And then that's how you lead into Night Eye. Oh. Night Eye on his deathbed. Again, that is just so crazy that this character that we've known for a very, very brief time, but for him to die and us to get that sort of emotion out of it, like, and even like from All Might too, like All Might started crying too, you know, because like this was his friend, you know, like this is almost like watching, this would almost be like David Shield if he died, you know. So that's the thing, you know, just the fact that they can get that emotion from us is incredible, you know. So, this was really, really great. But yeah, and I like how he says, you know, perhaps it's the thoughts that you have, you know, the vision that you have, that there's no room to change it, and every single person they're fighting had those thoughts, and they all converged on Midoriya's energy and allowed him to change the future. Which, that is the thing. Something that Night Eye could never do, because Night Eye would see the future and he's like, well, I mean, I'll try, but that seems to be the future. That's not the kind of energy that you need to change the future, you know? So all that energy converged on Midoriya in that fight and allowed him to change the future, which is amazing. So yeah, that was pretty incredible. And again, you could almost wonder, is part of that One for All because of that power, you know? Which, that is the craziest thing, you know? One for All, it just started off as stockpiling plus passing on. But what it has garnered over almost 200 years of existence is a force to be reckoned with that seems like now it could potentially change the future. And that's what I said a few episodes ago, is that if there is any person who could change the future, it's the holder of One for All. You know, it would be Deku or All Might or Shimura or anyone. If anyone can do it, it's the person that has One for All, because it is such, it's almost like that's the thing, is that all quirks basically, like there's something about quirks where it's like, even if they're not quite like evolution, like some of them are weird, tape arms and hand cameras and stuff like that, but they all seem almost practical, almost like it's hard to describe it. But okay, basically nothing ever seems magical on this show. Nothing seems like mystic, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Like, how we've said, like, other superheroes like the Flash, well, how does he get his speed? This cosmic speed force that grants him this power, and he runs really fast and has this lightning and is connected to this cosmic speed force and everything. That's great. Okay, on this show, how do we do a speedster? There's a guy with fucking engines in his legs. He's 1080, he runs fast because he has engines, He kicks it into high gear, literally, and runs fast, But as we have gone on, seeing everything that happens with One for All, it seems to be the most fantastical quirk, Like, it seems... this quirk is almost magical, So, perhaps it was One for All fighting the Rewind, keeping Midoriya the way he was. Perhaps it was all that energy, like Night Eye said, all that energy concentrated on Deku, concentrated on One for All, that allowed Deku to change the future, If there is any quirk that could do it, it is One for All, because it is honestly fantastic, That's the thing. So that was incredible. And then, this is how we reach a bright future. And he did use his foresight one last time on Mirio to show that he will be the finest hero. Oh, man. And Night Eye is gone. Night Eye is gone, which means... does the work study end? It must have to. Unless Bubble Girl takes up the agency, but I don't know. Yeah, what is next for Mirio and Deku and honestly and Bubble Girl and everyone? Like, what is next after the death of Night Eye? That is our question. But yeah, this was an incredible episode, and I am excited to see where we are going next time. So with all that being said, I'm Alex from 7th Hour Films, and I will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. If you want to watch more of my Hero Academia reactions, you can click on the playlist, you can subscribe if you haven't done that already, and be sure to hit that notification bell. You can support me on Patreon and follow me on social media, links below in the description. See you guys later.